The reason that I just said a special kapitel to Hillam is because when you discuss a sensitive issue, you need special siyata d'shmaya. Especially if it seems like I'm being critical, then it's very easy for people to misunderstand me, get defensive, miss my point. Who am I to comment on this? And I didn't do this for a long time, many years, that I really held myself back until I discussed it with my Das Torah. And they said that, if you have something to say that could save lives, there's a chiyuv to do it. Even at maybe risk to myself. The famous story that the Belzer Rebbe, I think it was Reb Arla, he specifically did not join Agudas Yisrael, even though he supported it. And he said because when you're in something, you can't really criticize it. He said, I'm going to stay on the outside, and I'm going to criticize it. I'm going to make sure that it's as good as it's supposed to be. I'm giving you my perspective. I don't need headaches, and I'm not looking to criticize. This is how I see this very delicate situation, and I'm giving a big hakdama and davening to Hashem that nobody should get offended and nobody should feel that I'm judging or attacking anybody, chas v'shalom. I work with so many therapists, so many mental health professionals, so many Askanim, so many Rabbanim. I'm not an organization, I'm just a private person. And I had a big schus. I have a big schus to deal with so many people that are in the field. I probably send more people to therapy than any individual person. There are organizations that do referrals, but as a private person, I probably refer so much more to therapy at the right time, at the right place. I'm a very big fan of therapy. Some of my best friends are therapists. But there's a problem. First of all, the first problem is I'm not really sure that the therapy world should have ever had a training to teach therapists how parents should deal with rebellious children. Therapy is be'etzem for a person who's coming to a therapist, a mental health professional, who has problems, whether they need a therapist or a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And they're saying, please help me with my problems. And for that, therapy is gewaldic. If you get the right therapist and the right type of treatment. How to control someone else, I don't see how this was ever part of the therapy model. When parents say, I have a rebellious child at home, I'm not sure where it came from that the therapy world should say, oh, we will advise you on how to deal with that. I'm not sure what it has to do with therapy. Therapy is how to help somebody deal with their pain and their trauma and their own self. How to deal with chinuch issue, education, parenting. I'm not really sure how it ever became part of the therapy world. And I've done a lot of studying of therapy. I've spoken to a lot of therapists. I don't believe it ever needed to be a part of the therapy world. You don't go to a therapist about that. Maybe a parenting coach, perhaps. I don't know. But somebody who trains in therapy, in mental health, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, any kind of mental health professional that goes for years to school to learn how to treat nefesh ha'adam, to learn how to treat the mental health of their patient. I don't see what that has to do with how to control your out-of-control teenager or young adult, how to deal with kids who are suicidal, how to deal with other people. And yes, it is part of it. And I'm just saying is I wonder if that had to be that way. That's number one. But now we have a problem. And again, I'm telling you as a private person without any agenda. I'm just sharing. I want to give an introduction. There's a guy who's about 5 years younger than me. I would say this is probably 10 years ago, where he was advising a family, and then they came to me, and then he called me. He really attacked me with all of his skills, and he's smart, top therapist. And he really attacked me and everything that I hold and believe with all of his skill. We were on the phone for 2 hours. I was trying to explain this, I was trying to explain that, and he was saying, no, you have to put consequences on the child, otherwise they'll never change. You have to have boundaries, you have to have rules. If a child won't listen to the rules, then they lose the right to be in the house. And I tried to explain that we can de-escalate the situation and we can get them to abide by the rules, but just in a different way and not by going head to head and fighting, and the contracts aren't working for our kids and all of that. And it just escalates the situation, all the damage that we've seen, all the kids that are lost, all the kids that are dead, Rahman al-Islan. All the damage done for no reason to the parents, to the other kids, the house on fire. And 2 hours, I didn't get anywhere. Neither did he. Because what I'm doing is built on experience. I had no agenda when I started working with kids. I wasn't trained. I didn't learn from anybody. I had a crazy idea to open a home. Didn't make any sense. And I learned from them. And then parents started coming to me and I said, I think you should do it this way. I think you should do, and it started working. And if parents weren't successful, I wouldn't be here today. Nobody would refer to me. Rabbanim wouldn't keep coming down and speaking to the parents. Rabbanim wouldn't keep on sending me other parents if the first crew that they sent to me were not matzliach. There are Rabbanim who are working with me in the parenting department, let's say over 10 years, 12 years. They have their referral service. They know that. They've sent people to me and they know that none of our kids are in jail. None of our kids are, Baruch Hashem, have committed suicide. They know I'm very open of the kids that we lost, Rahman al-Islan. We lost 2 kids when the parents were in training here who did everything right, and I've spoken about that. And we lost 3 kids years later. The kids were already stable and Frum, and they slipped back. And they also know that statistically, as painful as it is for our TP family and for me personally, because I become so attached, of course, it hurts so bad. But statistically, it's not even 1%. We have no kids that are homeless. We have no kids in the jail system. We de-escalate. We're doing a good job. I had no agenda when I learned what it is that works. And especially, I never take cases until they first go to the therapy world. It's only after that doesn't work that parents came to me. I was always the last stop. And I have over 600 audio and some video testimonies of parents. And you can come and you see them here. And they tell you their story. There was one family, they went to 64 people before coming to me. 64 times that they cried and shared, and Rabbanim and therapists and everyone. 64 people until Reb Chaim Kanievsky Zatzal gave them a bracha to come to me, which is recorded. You know what that is? So it's not like I popped up and I said, I know the answers. No, I said, okay, you tried all that. It didn't work. Let's try this. And it started working. So whatever I'm saying is my experience, and the same experience as many people who didn't come with an agenda and who humbly accepted the feedback from the actual patients to see what works and what doesn't work. I sit here with parents. If what I say does not work, you all know about it. I'm not doing these things in secret. I don't have HIPAA problems. Everything is open. We have over 150 Kein Yirba kids who are Shomei Torah mitzvahs just from the TP family. Then there's more from the cousins, a lot more. So on every level, we'll bring matzliach, and that's why we have a mahalach. But by all means, first go to the professional world. 90% of the calls that I get, I don't get involved with because it's not what I call stage 4. And even in group, many times you'll hear me say, I think you should go for a second opinion. And many times you hear me say, well, let's break it down. 99.9% of the people out there in the professional world would tell you, kach v'kach v'kach, this and this and this. I know what they would say. And if your heart tells you to follow them, go to them. I can only tell you what's been working for me, what I've seen. And so many times in group, and I'm not here to pump myself up, how many times a day are there parents that say, wow, Avi was right. I know how kids think, I know how they feel, I know what they need. And it happens to be, it's totally in line with Das Torah. And that's why I have a collection of over 5,000 authentic Divrei Torah and stories from authentic Gedolim. I'm putting together a book. I hope it's going to come out soon. Chelik Rishon, the first volume is about, I don't know how many pages, 900, 1,000 pages. One is probably going to be 1 out of 5 volumes. And you see over and over again, we're doing mamish what the Gedolim of yesteryear said. And everybody here is doing everything with their Das Torah. We're the only place in the world that we don't do anything without every person's individual Das Torah on top of my Das Torah. I have smicha in this inyan, authentic smicha, to give advice in this area, written from so many Gedolim, real authentic Gedolim, who have stated it publicly, who've done videos, who have spoken publicly. Okay, not every Gadol is going to agree on anything. It bothers me, though, that there are some Gedolim that say negative things about me. Come here and sit here for 2-3 hours and see the results and understand what we're up against. I only deal with pikuach nefesh, with kids that have a psak and a diagnosis that they are in grave mortal danger to life. And I still don't rely on my own psak from my smicha that I have in this inyan. I don't know anything else, by the way, but in this inyan, I have smicha. And I don't rely on it. I double check everything with every person's Das Torah. So the Satmar people here, they have the Satmar Rebbe sent them and gave them a dayan that's going to paskin for them. All the way down to, I don't mean down, all the way to the other side. From everywhere. Nobody's doing anything against Das Torah. Sorry for such a long introduction. I just want to be so careful not to offend anyone. I have the highest respect for Erlicha Frum Jews that decide to make a living by dedicating their lives to helping people. And even if you get paid, every second you're going to get schar for helping people. And I recommend to therapists, and I am friendly with therapists. I want to say the end of that story, that guy that argued with me for 2 hours. After several years, I met him, and he came over to me and he said, I want to apologize to you. I stopped doing what he was doing then, CBD. You should do CBD. CBT, DBT, talk therapy. I stopped completely, and I only do trauma work, and you're right, and I was wrong. Sitting with the training and looking at it a certain way, he was only able to see something. But sit in this room and have to deal with the consequences of that other advice, it's a different world. Here's the issue. You have Erlicha b'nei Torah, Erlicha from men and women that choose, out of all the ways to make a living, they choose to become therapists, mental health professionals. You have some of them that are mamish geniuses, brilliant, Frum, Erlich, b'nei Torah. It's wonderful. The best way to live your life is helping people. And the Sfarim say that even though you're getting paid for it, you get schar for helping someone. There are stories about that from tzaddikim. Fine. What happens when you have an Erlich of Frum man or woman who goes into this field And then parents who are Frum parents come to them and they ask them a question. What should I do? My 14-year-old, my 15-year-old, any age is rebelling. What should I do? And on the one hand, they have a training. That's why most of the therapists are saying the same thing. They have a training that they got on how to deal with it, which is usually rules, consequences, and boundaries. Okay? But on the other hand, they're Frum. And the parents are Frum. And we have a Torah. And we have advice. So how can it be that the Frum therapist doesn't offer that advice also to the parents? In other words, my Goyish professor taught me to tell you this and this, but I just want to tell you as a Frum person that you should just know that Rav Steinman Zatzal said to do that. The Chazon Ish said to do that. Or whichever your gadol is. Not only that, I've spoken to so many of them and they don't even know it. So they're in a field and they're learning only from the secular side, from the professors and all of that, and they're really dedicated. And then they learn their Daf Yomi and their Frum and all of that, but they don't know the sugya of Nefesh Ha'adam. They don't know the sugya of how to deal with rebellious children or Yidden that are rebelling. They don't even know the Mara Mekaymis. And those who are my friends, I tell them, please, why don't you know this? How could you be in a field and not know what the Chazon Ish said about it? And if you don't know, you should know. And if you do know, how do you negate it? Especially when giving advice to Frum parents. They're coming to you because they don't know what to do. And you're giving them advice, and they're looking at you as a Frum person. They expect you to give them the advice that's also Al Pi Torah. And even if you can't give only Al Pi Torah, but at least mention it. But how do you negate it? Isn't that Lifnei Iver Lo Sitein Michshol? By not mentioning to them that I'm going to give you advice that I learned in college and in my studies, but I just want to tell you that Rav Pam said to do this and this and this. Because you're going to say, well, they're not coming to you as a rabbi, but they're coming to you because you're not a goy that went to school. You're a Frum person that went to school, so you know this inyan. And how could you give advice, even besides for that, how could you give advice that goes against the Torah? How could you give advice that goes against Das Torah? You can't do that for a living. And you're not even telling them, and you may not even know. When it comes to the sugya of controlling out of control children, they asked the Chazon Ish what to do. They asked Rav Pam what to do. They asked the Baal Shem Tov what to do. They asked Reb Chaim Kanievsky what to do. They asked Rav Steinman what to do. They asked, I have thousands of stories, what to do. How could it be that a Frum person is going to give advice to Frum parents in a sugya that we have a Messiah and not even mention it? And these parents, they don't just walk away thinking that you're telling me what the Goyim do. They're coming to you because you're Frum, because you're Erlich. And you are Frum and you are Erlich. How could you not tell them what the Torah says on how to deal with their painful situation? And what are you to do? Because on the other hand, you're also a professional and you have a license on the wall. You can't give advice that goes against what you taught. Maybe that's a problem. Maybe you have to recuse yourself and say, I can't really advise on this because my religious Messiah tells me one thing, and my teaching tells me something else. Or maybe you could realize that the Das Torah, the Messiah of Torah, understands this child better than the teachings. Someone asked me, there are times that my advice goes against regular mental health professionals. So there could be 10,000 of them. So you have a seesaw, right? And you have 10,000 on one side, you have one guy on the other side. Okay, I have a few people on my side also, by the way. But I'm not doing it because of them. I'm doing it just myself. I'm telling you my experience of what works, and I'm going to hold your hand. And if it doesn't work, then I'm with you. And Baruch Hashem, it does work. But how do you have the guts to give advice to parents that goes against 10,000 people? So first of all, the answer is that before I got involved with this, I started showing them what I learned from the kids who came to me, who lived by me in Home Sweet Home. I have real life experience. I'm not an armchair philosopher. I wasn't looking out the window and saying, I think we should just give money for this or that. And I think, I don't know why I said I think with a funny accent. I guess I'm thinking of the guy, the armchair philosopher with the pipe. That's not what happened here. I opened a home. I moved kids who were homeless and who were thrown out of home. Some of them were atheists, some of them shmad. One of them shmad, he was Christian. I did the work. I took the achrayas. I brought them into my house without any hadracha from anybody, except for my Rosh Hashiva, Reb Shmuel Kamenetsky Shlita, who I called before I opened up. I said, I need das Torah, and he held my hand and answered any shilas. But as far as the day-to-day operations of how to take kids who, until that day, were anti-Torah, most of them, and drug addicts, and bring them into you, and most of them are clean. Their clean date is the day they moved into Home Sweet Home. Not most, all. None of them went back to the street on drugs. None of them committed suicide. Almost all of them graduated Frum. So I don't have a right to an opinion? Of course I have a right. I did the work. And it could have ended badly because I had no idea what I was doing. I just saw kids and I just felt I want to help them. But the fact is that my mahalach worked. It worked to help them emotionally, physically. They didn't kill themselves. They got healthy, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. And those are the facts. Here, right over there is the album from every year of Home Sweet Home. You can meet them. They're out there. 95% graduated, Shomer Torah mitzvahs. And I had no Torah or mitzvahs as part of the program. The volunteers can give testimony to what they saw happen. What we saw was miraculous in every sense of the word. On the one hand, I had the whole mental health world when I didn't know them, but afterwards I went to a meeting with a lot of them about something. They were questioning me. You don't send the kids to AA? No. You don't send the kids to rehab? No. You don't detox them in a detox place? No, but some of them were doing, it wasn't really heroin and crack, that level. I didn't take that. It didn't really exist in those days from the kids anyway, they didn't come to me. But cocaine is bad. Doing coke for a year, for 2, including weed and party drugs and all of that stuff, and crazy behavior, and getting thrown out of house, and threatening to kill your family, and violence. I dealt with all of that. And you just took them into Home Sweet Home. And then Shabbos, they came to your house, and every night you had volunteers who had no training take them out for fun, and this worked. So there was a huge question on that side, not questioning me in a bad way, but like, whoa, what are you doing? Do you realize all those organizations that are so busy with detox and AA and rehabs and trauma centers? I'm not against it. I'm not against anybody. I just didn't use any of that. I don't know if it existed when I opened up Home Sweet Home in 2003. I just tried to help people. I took them in. I had a mahalach, making them feel good, no pressure to conform, bring them into your house, make them feel loved. Every night was fun, from Frum guys who had no expectations of them, no shachris mincha maariv, no put on tefillin, I'm not Lubavitch, and woo, who would have thought? I never thought that. I had no expectations. I didn't expect them to be Frum. I didn't expect anything. And one after another, the first 10 all graduated Frum. It was terrible for business. This kid came to check out, this rough kid, he's 16-year-old tough punk. He's checking out the house, this and that, and he tells me, yeah, my rabbi guy dropped me off, made me come here, but I'm not coming here. I said, why? He says, because I know the guys who came here last year, and you made them all Frum. I'm not coming here. So I looked at him in the eyes, I told him the truth. I said, I promise you, it was a mistake. It's true. I had no idea they're going to be Frum. I had no idea that they're going to all of a sudden within 1 year. Miracles. I didn't know that they're not going to steal and they're not going to go back on drugs. I didn't know that they're going to stay off. I didn't know anything, but I did the work and I learned something. The piece that's missing inside of them, I learned what it is. Not from a professor, not from a storybook, not from anybody, just from myself, from doing the work. My kids grew up with this their whole lives. They saw it. They saw the kid come in angry, cursing at the Shabbos table, out of control, smoking in between every course. And then a year later, most of them, edel, sweet, kind, Frum. They saw it happen. So yeah, I'm entitled to an opinion. So when parents started coming to me, I told them the piece that's missing is the love and the acceptance and the support instead of looking at them as bad. That's pretty much the whole thing. Yeah, but he's using a razor. Yeah, I understand that. If Torah lets you buy the razor, you should buy him a razor. If Torah says no, then I understand we have a Torah problem. Let's speak to your Rav. He brings treif home. Yeah, I understand it's very painful. The piece that he needs inside of him is called tmicha, supporting him. Then he feels your love. Then he feels, but only what the Rav says. Ask the Rav, you're allowed to buy treif, you're not allowed to buy treif. If you're allowed to, that's what you should do. If you're not allowed to, you do as much as you can according to the Torah. Nothing more, nothing less. Maskim? Sure. And that's what happened. And without me advertising, and I didn't want to see parents, as you know, they started reaching out to me. And then people say, Avi Fishoff. I'm like, who? You want to help them? Why are they coming to me? I never advertised. 5, 10, 15, 20, 30. After 40 couples came, I realized, and they came without even knowing each other. It was just like individuals that reached out. They were going everywhere, and they found a home, and they found success, Baruch Hashem. So how could one person, basically, I mean, again, I have more people on my side. By now, a lot. But what I'm saying is not because of those people. It's because of what I am saying. How could I say something that goes against 10,000, or I don't know how many Frum therapists we have? And they're brilliant, and they're Frum, and they're Erlich, and they will argue with me. So how do you fight that? I think the answer is very simple. How do they know what to do? And the answer is because they went to school, and they learned. They learned from a system on how to deal with a rebellious teenager or young adult, whatever. And the school taught them what to do. So they're all not 10,000 or 20,000 or 100,000. They're one. They're one mahalach that's taught to them from the school. How did the professor know what to do? How to fix and heal a rebellious teenager to get them to be a successful adult? How do they know? How do they know what advice to give? Because they did research, just like you, Avi, did research, more than research. You opened a home. There's a $1 billion industry. They've done tons of research with much bigger than what you've done. Correct. But they've done research on Goyim. And I did research, more than research, on Jews. And what I did works for Frum kids who grew up Frum. It's a whole different world. Besides the fact that we have to have emunah, that a yid is different than a guy, and that we have an neshama, and that we have a soul. Besides for that, which is really, it's a big deal, because we really believe, again, we know, that all these kids are chelek elokah mimal mamish. So don't compare me to how you're going to deal with this person from this neighbor. It's a different bria. That's what we believe. It could be offensive to not Frum people or to goyim, but to Frum therapists it's not offensive. That's what you believe also. So how do you apply something that was done, research on a rebellious goy, on a Jew that we believe is a chelek elokah mamish, chelek elokah mimal mamish? Number one. Number two, our kids grow up completely different than Goyim. I'll bring you a raya. I'll bring you a proof. Ask a random guy, how many WhatsApp groups are you on? Do you know that about 6 years ago, when WhatsApp started happening, I went into the Verizon store, where there used to be a Verizon store, and I was speaking to him about WhatsApp, and I had a question, and he said, call Verizon. I called up, the guy said, I don't know what WhatsApp is. Goyim really didn't use WhatsApp. They do now, maybe, but in the Yiddish community, WhatsApp was like fire. It just caught on fire. Ask a guy, how many WhatsApp groups do you have? Ask a Yid, how many WhatsApp groups do you have? Come on. We are so interconnected. Every Yiddish person is on, you have a family, then you have the cousins, then you have just the nephews and nieces, just the girls, the women's chat, then you have the cooking chat, then you have the Stiebel chat, the shul chat, the block chat, the bungalow chat, the shul chat, then you have the other shul chat that's only serious. There's one for jokes and one for serious. Then you have the other one that makes fun of the other one. Then you have the chaplain chat. Then you have the Hatzalah chat, the Shomrim chat, the news chat. Come on, how many groups are you on? What does it mean? What's my point? Most of the Goyish kids who are broken, if you look at their structure of their family, they don't have this tree with roots going back to Har Sinai. They don't have grandparents on both sides and 30 cousins and 50 cousins and big families. They didn't go to a school and a community. All these things are things that emotionally bind you to your family, to your community. Go to shul. Maybe they go to church on Sunday. How can you compare it to shul? We have cholent. We have kiddush. We have community. We live together on a block. We go to bungalows. They don't do that. They don't spend time together. They're not arevim farmished one with the other. They're not mixed. They don't have the family systems that we have. They didn't go to a school that the parents paid $250,000 in tuition, and with 30 kids in the class that are just like them, with parents who are Erlich and Frum, or Hasidish, or Litvish, or Yeshivish. They don't have that. They don't have exposure to Gedolim. How could you compare learning how to deal with an out-of-control kid that has 1.3 siblings and a mother and maybe a father or not a father, and I don't want to make fun more where this research comes from. To an upstanding Jewish family, rich or poor, we're upstanding. We have values, we have morals, we have mitzvahs, we're busy, we have sukkahs, we have Pesach, we have Shavuos, we have family time, we have Hanukkah, we have Purim. Yeah, it's true, they have Halloween. And so you're taking the research done on a different bria, on a different system, on a whole different mentality, and you're applying it to a Yiddish kid from Borough Park, from Williamsburg, any Yiddish kid, young Israel also, it doesn't matter, any Yiddish kid. That's how I could argue with them. The mentality that they have, which may work for their children, even if it does work for their children, does not work on a Yiddish kind, on a Yiddish child. For the chelik al-kamimal part, that we believe is real, that he's be'etzem toiv, and all of you learned therapists know, you learn, at least in Siva Shalom, right? I'm sure you do. And Tanya, and everything, that we're be'etzem toiv. B'pnimi is kol Yehudi, who chelik al-kamimal is be'etzem toiv. Well, what about all of that, and all the midrashim and everything? We're be'etzem good, we're be'etzem godly. Every one of us was in Har Sinai. And you're going to take what their advice is on a different bria plus a different family system, and you're going to apply it to a Jewish family. Plus, when it doesn't work, they dig in. Okay, more. I don't want to talk. I'm not here to talk bad. I'm here to ask a question. What does a Frum mental health professional do when they're giving advice on a subject that the Torah has clear advice which is contrary to the Goyish advice that their professor told them, what are you meant to do? Because if you take my over 500 TP families who have ended up here because the advice that they got did not work, I'm nobody's first call. And the kid went from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3. I don't even touch it till stage 4. And even in stage 4, a lot of people, especially years ago, didn't call me or didn't know about me or didn't want to come to me. I guess because I'm free. So they slid through the hands of the spiral of so many professionals. Do you understand how many parents that came here paid between 3 and 10 or more mental health professionals before coming to me? They're not starting off with me. I got to pick up all the ones that fall through the cracks. And halavai should work. Halavai, your advice should work. Then I can go back to my life, whatever it was, before all of this happened. I'm not against you. I want you to be successful. But what happens if you're not successful? You dig into it more and more and more, and we're losing kids. Let's go back to the question. Do you know what the Torah outlook is on a rebellious child? You have to learn the sugya. And then the question is, what are you supposed to do when Frum parents come to you and they're begging you for advice and they're in so much pain? Do you not tell them what the Torah says because you have to tell them only what the professor said? Or could you at least do both? Or maybe you should just tell them, listen, I'm taking off my professional hat. I just want to tell you what Rav Pam Zatzal said. I had a therapist that called me and he was challenging me. So I said, hold on one second. Where are you from? Where did you learn? He learned in Torah V'das. Ehrlich, Frum, probably knows, he knows much more Torah than I do, no question about it. And Goodskite, he's good, and he dedicates his life to help people. And he's arguing with me about what parents should do when the child is rebelling. So I said, hold on. What did Rav Pam say about this? You're Rosh Hashiva. He said, I don't know. I said, I'll send it to you. I sent it to him, and I said, let's learn it together line by line. It's only 2 pages. Clear hadracha from Rav Pam. I said, so I'm giving the parents the hadracha that your Rosh Hashiva gave. Correct? He said, yes. And you're giving hadracha against what your Rosh Hashiva, your Gadol Adar. In his sukkah, he has a picture, that's what where someone's from, who their Gadol is. His picture is Rav Pam. He has a picture of him in yeshiva with Rav Pam. It's the biggest thing in the world. And you're giving advice keneged what Rav Pam specifically said and outlined exactly. How could you do that? And if you're a Satmar therapist, I know what the Divrei Yoel said. And if you're, wherever you're from, I know what the Rebbe Vadia Yosef said. I know what the Chaim Kanievsky Zatzal said. Zatzal and all of them. I'm sorry if I'm not saying it properly. I know. And Yibadal Chaim Tovim, I know what the Shmuel Kamenetsky Shlita says. And I know what the Gershon Edelstein Shlita says. Ziknei Hadar. In the 90s, Kanai Nahar Zal Zayin Gesund Ad Mei V'Esem Shana. And you're giving advice connected what they say. And a lot of them will say, no, I spoke to him and he said, Hakmanish Kanchainik. Because that's a different discussion. I'm not trying to hurt you. That's why I said it, Kapitel Tehillim, before I started, because people get defensive. I'm on your side. You want to help, and you want to be Erlich. So all I'm saying is, you have to make sure that the advice that you're giving is Ois Kahaltan Al Pi Torah, for your own neshama, that you're not giving bad advice, which we all daven, because we know it's a terrible sin to give bad advice. And I don't care how much you get paid and what school you went to. If your advice is keneged HaTorah, you're over an Aveira. And you have to figure out what to do with this. Either say, I'm sorry, I can't give you advice. Or maybe you're allowed to get a heter to say, I'm going to teach you what the Rav Pam said, what the Gedolim said, but then I'm going to tell you what my professor said, and then you could choose. But not to mention that we have a Torah, not to mention that we have a Messiah. I want to encourage you never to give advice, whether you're a mental health professional, whether you're an Askin. We have Askanim that dedicate their lives to saving people. They're tzaddikim. But some of them give advice in a sugya that goes against Das Torah. That's a fact. Just learn the sugya. Do whatever you want. I don't care. I'm not looking over your shoulder. And one thing that everybody knows, I have a lot of people looking over my shoulder. I have a lot of people, I feel terrible because just come here and talk to me. But I don't look over anybody's shoulder. I'm not criticizing people, even if I feel that they're doing wrong. But I'm here to just create an awareness that if you care, if you don't care, you know where the off button is? You shouldn't have even listened until now. But if you care and you are an Askin, or you're a Rav, you know how many Rabbanim gave advice keneged the Chazon Ish? I had a very, very interesting story. I was on the phone with a Rav, and the parents were not by me. He called me up, and he said, I want to discuss something with you. I gave advice to parents, kach v'kach v'kach, this and this and this. And I'm listening. I said, I never get involved unless the parents are in front of me. He said, I know, but I just want to ask you this type of question. So I said, well, do you know what Chazon Ish said about this? He said, no. So I said, let's learn it together. I sent him right away, Maisa Ish, the story. He said, oh, how could a Rav give advice to Erlich parents and Erlich Rav when he doesn't know the sugya? He doesn't know the sugya. He doesn't know the Maramakaimis. And it's so sad because it's so available. Somebody giving Choshen Mishpat advice on business, whether you're an advisor, a coach, a mental health professional giving business advice, I don't know why you would, but let's say, or a Rav. If you don't know the halacha of Choshen Mishpat, if you don't know the Messiah and how things are done, why do you have to be in that field? And if you're in that field, ashrecha, but in order for it to be v'tayvlach, you can't give advice that goes against Das Torah. See, this Chashav Rav tells me, crazy story. The boy said that he wants a car. And the father said, you know what? I'm willing to buy you a car. But not if you drive it on Shabbos. How you talking? I'm going to go ahead and buy you a car that you're going to drive Michal Shabbos Bifahesi with a car that I'm paying for? Never going to happen. And the boy said, okay, no deal. And our relationship deteriorated. And he's angry and he's Michal Shabbos. And he went to his Rav. And the Rav told him, of course not. I mean, you're putting a gun in his hand? You're going to support Chil Shabbos B'Fahesia? Ki'ilu Ovid Avodah Zarah v'chule v'chule v'chule. And then the Rav was talking to somebody and somebody said, Avi would say you should buy the car. So he gets angry. I don't know why everybody likes to get angry. What do you have to get angry? You can get incredulous. You can get, let me speak to the guy. Gets angry. So he calls me up. What are you telling people? I said, what am I telling people? You would tell somebody in that situation to buy the car for a child who's going to be Michal Shabbos B'Farhesia? I have to put you in Chayrim. I said, stand in line. So I said, can I respond? First of all, he had to calm down. And I couldn't even tell him, please calm down, because he's a Rav. I said, let me read it to you. It's brought down in Maisa Ish, and Reb Gershon Edelson Shlita brings it down, kama v'kama pa'amim, so you can't even tell me, which it wouldn't work anyway to say it's outdated, because the Chazon Ish would remain for today also, but the Gadol Hadar is telling us repeatedly that this is current. Exact same story. And the father said, I'm not buying you a car. I'm not insane. I'm not putting Chil Shabbos into you. I don't want, first of all, I'm not helping you, and I don't want you to think it's okay. And why should you ever do tshuva if I support you? For all the reasons that normal people are sure are the right reasons. And I was once like that also. I was also once a normal person who would say the same thing and feel very, I used to feel, not really. Kishehagia el Rabbeinu, when the question was brought to the Chazon Ish, he was miyayitz the father that it's kedai to buy the child the car, even though the child said, and he will drive the car on Shabbos b'farhesia, kedei shetiskadel hashpa'asoi olav, in order that by doing this, his influence on the child will increase. So you, dear Rav, or therapist, or if you don't understand this Chazon Ish, then how could you give advice? He couldn't believe it. I had to show it to him, and he had to look it up, and he called me back and said, you're right. I said, forget about the fact that you got it wrong. How much thinking was going through your brain to reach this conclusion, and all that thinking was wrong. You were looking at the problem wrong, and therefore your brilliant mind, because he's a smart, brilliant person, your conclusion was wrong. The Chazon Ish looked at the whole problem differently, and therefore his conclusion was different, and then he paskened la halacha different, that it's not lifnei iver leisitin michshol. And it's not Mesayaya l'dei oivri avera, which it looks like it's Mesayaya, it looks like you're helping him, no? So if you don't understand the problem and the solution to the problem, to heal the problem, to create that the child should come back, then how could you give advice? It's not just that you got it wrong. Your mentality is wrong. Your thinking is wrong. Your uptight of the sugya is wrong. Because you look at the child as B-A-D, as bad, that needs to be held in its place, and I'm not going to support bad behavior, because if I do, I'm giving the wrong lesson to the child. Yeah, you're all nodding your heads because you all heard that. What kind of a lesson are you giving him by supporting it? You're not going to buy her a miniskirt. So you don't have to agree, but you should just know that Reb Gershon Edelstein said you should. So just don't be angry and defensive. Just realize, hey, maybe Reb Gershon's right. The Chazon Ish said on Reb Gershon Shlita that he doesn't even have a shminis of gaiva. He's supposed to have 1/64 of gaiva. He said he doesn't even have that. The Chazon Ish told Reb Chaim Kanievsky, Zatzal, Sar HaTorah, to learn with Reb Gershon. So Reb Gershon Shlita is Zayin Gesund, to Shiva Panavish, Gadol Ador. And somebody once made a nasty, not my gadol. First of all, I don't care if you hate gedolim and you have a problem. I don't. Every gadol is a gadol, but he's authentic, right? I don't care if you're the other politics, whatever. You're talking about a connection to the Chazon Ish, and he tells you should buy the miniskirt. So that means that your approach to the sugya is not Torah-dik. Why are you getting so defensive? You know it's not Torah-dik. You know that your approach comes from what you learned in school, which comes from research done by Goyim. Well, I'm not offending you. I'm not screaming you're a shegitz. I'm not screaming you're wrong. You're smart. You went to school. They gave you a book. They told you what to do. Again, remember the beginning. I'm not sure really why this is part of the world of therapy on how to control others. And you're doing what you're supposed to do. And in many other fields, you're successful because of that. But in the field of controlling children, we have a Messiah. Where are you from? Tell me. Torah V'das? I'll show you what Rav Pam said. You're from Panavish? I'll show you what they say. You're Hasidish? Where are you? Where are you from? Where's your Messiah? Why can't we follow our Messiah? So I'm begging you, if you're not ready to follow it, but at least learn it, and at least present it to the Frum parents that are paying you money or asking you advice if you're an Askan, and you Askanim, they mean L'Shem Shemayim. But you have no right to advise Frum parents to do something that's treif, that goes against their belief. It's not even about you. Ask the parents. Where do you belong? Where do you belong? You belong Rach Misrifk? You belong in Ribnitz, from Ribnitz? Where are you from? And do your research and say, well, this is what your Torah giant says to do. And if you want, I'll tell you what I think, and it's the opposite, but give them their information, because they're turning to you. They don't know. A dark cloud has ascended on Klal Yisrael for almost 30 years since the at-risk phenomenon hit us. A dark cloud that most people giving eitzes, whether it's mental health professionals or Askanim or even Rabbanim, don't know what the Chazon Ish said. I don't know what to do. I mean, it's inexcusable. It's so open, it's so out there. They don't know what the Baal Shem Tov said. And they don't know what Rav Shimshon Pincus said. And I'm not going to go through everything because I have 5,000. It'll take us a long time. How do you not know Mara Mekaymis? So please, relax. Don't get defensive. I'm not trying to offend you. You could be great at doing CBT and DBT and trauma work and saving lives of people who come to you and all kinds of counseling and marriage counseling where both people are there, or wonderful. When it comes to my sugya, the only sugya that I know, as a frum person, make a Kabbalah that you're not going to give advice that goes against your Das Torah and or their Das Torah. In other words, even if your Das Torah says to eat chalav stam, but if they're Hasidish, you're going to tell them, oh, I bought this, but I just want to let you know you can't eat it. It's not chalav Yisrael, right? So it has to be your Das Torah and their Das Torah, or their Das Torah. And anyway, they will say the same thing. Otherwise, how could you take money for this and give advice keneged the Messiah of the people coming to you for advice? I spent a lot of time here because I feel that there's so much underneath this, and it's so sensitive. I don't want anybody to get offended. I don't want anybody to take words out. Who is he? I'm just telling you what I see, and I know that the Frum Erlicha therapists, mental health professionals, they want to do the right thing. They're not going to say that. They're not going to say, who is he? They're going to say, at the end of the day, I am Frum. I'm giving advice to Frum people. Let me check it out. And then you can do whatever you want. But you have to know what Das Torah says. And if you have a Das Torah that says different, fine. Okay. I hope that they're strong enough to counteract all these other things. And I hope that it works. Another problem that we have, we're talking about with the amount of families that have come here. They've gone to somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 professionals and Askanim or Rabbanim in their journey before coming here. And when they came to me, they said, nobody ever told this to me before. But I'm like, but you've gone, okay, some of the professionals were goyim, okay, but you've gone to Frum people, you've gone to Frum Rabbanim, you've gone to Frum Askanim, you've gone to Frum mental health professionals. They didn't tell you about this? No. And that's what I'm here to say. And I'm interested in your feedback. I don't really want to debate. I just want to tell you that from my perspective, what the Chazon Ish said really works. And we shouldn't be ashamed just because a professor is teaching us something who could be brilliant. It's based on research done on a whole different animal, a whole different species, a whole different situation. Does not apply to our kids. And I gotta say that the advice of our real authentic Torah really works. And the proof is in the pudding. You can come to my training. You can come sit here with parents. I'm an open book. Come with an open mind and take a look and see, wow, from all the parents that follow Avi, not one kid is in jail. Do you know how many Jewish kids are in jail? From all the parents who follow Avi, there was not one suicide. Baruch Hashem, Hashem should continue to help us because many of them, talking about hundreds, are suicidal. And it's lav dafka, even if we do everything right, that we're getting there in time, because parents come to me usually years after going down the wrong path of following people telling them the opposite stuff. If we would get this right from the beginning, the world would look completely different. If everybody would follow the Chazon Ish, or whoever you come from, I'll tell you what they say, I'll show you. We wouldn't have suicides. We wouldn't have organizations against us. We wouldn't have hundreds of kids in psych wards. Almost every psych ward in America has Frum people there. The whole world would be different. The street would be different. Kids wouldn't be sucked into the street because the street would be practically empty. We wouldn't have any enemies. Not small ones and not big ones, on every level. And most of the kids come back. And I believe they'll all come back eventually. And that's what the Baal Shem Tov believed. And that's what the Chazon Ish believed. And that's what all these Maramekaymis believed. Chazon Ish said, Kadei shediskadel hashpa'aso yalav. You think it's over because he's Machal Shabbos B'Fasya? No, you still need to have influence that he shouldn't marry out, or that maybe he'll fast Yom Kippur. And if not now, your influence can cause that in 5 years from now. You know how many kids are coming back? And you're cutting off the influence by not supporting him in the name of Torah against the Chazon Ish. Chazon Ish said, in the name of Torah, Hashem, he could speak for Hashem, wants you to buy him the car. And you, little guy, are saying, as a Frum person, representing Frumkeit, no, you can't put a gun into his hand. It sounds very good, by the way. But it's just against the Chazon Ish, and it doesn't work. And that's why we have so many kids marrying Goyim. We have so many Goyish kids. We have so much going on out there. It's so busy. Shomer, Matzola, busy. Rahman al-Itzlan. Why is this why do you need me to tell Klal Yisrael that there's a Chazon Ish and there's 5,000 other Divrei Torah? I can't figure it out. I hope it's a schus that I'm opening the eyes of people to realize. You know how many fathers yell and scream at the kids and reject them and will not accept them and fight them and push the kids out of the house and push them into drugs and push them into the ground? Usually the mothers are better. And I'll tell you something very sad. Please don't take this in a bad way, but it seems to me that the wider the brim of the hat, the angrier the man is. I don't know the association of why anger has to do with the width of the brim. I don't understand this. Where does it come from? We have a Talmud Devorah. We have so much Torah out there that teaches us how to deal with this. And we have specifically on dealing with a child who's cursing you and all. We had Rav Steinman, Zatzal, and our Dor. How much more clarity do you need? Why would you not listen to what he said? He says exactly what to do. We had the Nesiv Shalom. Why do you think you're going to be more matzliach than listening to what the Nesiv Shalom specifically said? Why? Why would you eat? Why? And why is the starting point the Gaisha outlook? And then maybe if you end up by me, okay, maybe we'll try what the Slanim Rebbe said, who was Mayatzas Gedolei HaTorah, who Rav Shach said that he is the Mesilas Yesharim of our generation. Okay, I'm stuck. Maybe I'll give him a shot too, with a funny look, like. They're telling you how to save your child. They're telling you how to save these parents' children. Why can't we accept that? And why is it so easy to accept what a professor says or what our gut feeling is, which is full of us, instead of just humbly following Das Torah, authentic Das Torah? And somebody called me up. He said there's a certain Rav, and the Rav said to throw the kid out of the house, whatever. So I said, listen, I'm not fighting with anybody. I never fight. But even if you find that Rav, put him on the seesaw, put him on the scale. I have 5,000. I'll give them to you. I'll review them with you. And you think that your Rav, he's more right than all of this? Now you have to listen to your Das Torah, but why don't you show this to your Das Torah? Why shouldn't you show? Because Das Torah doesn't even know the sugya. Rahman al-Itzlan, I know this guy. I called him. I said, what are you hoping to gain? You're going to lose the kid. So then it gets into the whole thing. What about the other kids? So then that's a 2-hour discussion, which I have. We discuss it. Chazon Ish didn't know there's other kids, or Eliashiv didn't know, Chaim Kanievsky didn't know. It's ridiculous. There's no problem with the other kids. Yeah, they have Bali Taiva, they're all going to go off the derech. I know somebody that went to Avi, and one kid went off, and the other kid went off, and another. So it's puzzle. First of all, different speech. Second of all, I know plenty of families that did not go to Avi and went the other way, and the same thing happened. So then you're not going to go there either? So where are you going to go? Kids don't go off because they're following. Lo haya v'lo nivra. All the Askanim know that. It's deep pain. It's not easy to go off the derech. And nobody's following. Maybe they got there a day earlier. Maybe it was a drop easier. But there's something inside that's making them being ripped away from a Messiah that goes back to Har Sinai, and from giving nachas to their parents and the grandparents and the aunts and the uncles, and this pain drives them out. People don't know the sugya, so they say, well, you can't do that. They're going to do that. They make up their own thing, and they go against the Chazon Ish. So I hope I'm being clear. And the most important clarity that I'm begging you is, please don't get defensive. Don't think that I don't respect you. Don't think that I think I know better than you. I'm just telling you based on my experience of doing this day and night. And for parents that are out there, don't do anything to be marachik your child. Period. You will end up in such a different place of tsar that you can't even imagine. You can't even imagine. You think now it's about this. You can't imagine what's coming your way if you marachik your child. You cannot imagine. Just tonight I was on the phone with parents. The mother couldn't handle the two oldest daughters that were off the derech and doing bad things. And I don't blame her. And the hadracha was, you can't live here. They now, I can't say on tape where they're holding what they're doing. The level of pain is so much. We de-escalate the situation. We don't have any of that. At least we save that. We have peace and calm. Don't let anybody retzach ein talk you in to the fact that the Chazon Ish's idea of Yinasu L'mashcham Ba'avoisois Ahava, to pull them in with ropes of love, that's a lot of love. That's not, I tolerate you. It's not even saying I love you. Nobody moves their life from one direction to another because you tolerate me. V'loi lidchaisam chalila. That's what he said. V'loi lidchaisam chalila. You ever hear that? God forbid, don't reject them. Yes, when you go, you can't do this in my house, that's rejection. You need a heter to do that. And even if you get a heter, you're going to lose in the long run. Because you need kadei shetiskadel hashpa'asa your love. Not, you didn't break into your house and you have to protect your silver. You have to save this kid's life. V'loi lidchaisam chalila. Yes, when you go, when you give a look, they feel rejection. And you're making your own life worse. You're making your own life worse. You're upping the chances of having much more tsar and agmas nefesh. You know how many of those kids that were doing those terrible things? I'm talking about atheists. I'm talking about kids who shmad. I'm talking about kids who were mamish, on fire, rebels, who are today edel shayim Torah mitzvahs. Just give the medicine that works, and it fits in so much into the Torah Devarim that tells us that we have to live with rachum, chan, and erech hapayim. Where's your erech hapayim when you? It fits in so much to the adinus, to the sweetness of what a yid is. We're not here to control other people. Chinuch was to do everything possible to educate the child to want what you want. But once they say, I don't want, it's a whole different ballgame. Now you have to get them to one day want. And that will never happen by fighting with them and controlling them. And I have a million stories of failure that people did stuff that I saw with my own eyes. And I have a million stories of success. And I have another million stories that are hanging in the balance. But at least if you're following the Chazon Ish, you go to sleep at night knowing that I'm doing the Ratzon Hashem. You ask Hashem, you say, Hashem, you're the third shutef. We are doing what the Chazon Ish said. And all the other ones. Just simple. Simple. Follow the Baal Shem Tov. Lehoiv oisam b'yoser. That's what takes away spiritual problems. No, but you're going to do better by telling him, in my house you can't, and out of my head you can, and I'm not giving you money, and knocking the door at 11 o'clock, and you're going to be more successful than all of these Torah sources. No, you're going to eat it. You're going to eat your words, Rahman al-Itzlan. It's so painful for parents. They look back. I have so many parents, they come here and they cry and they say, I remember this one Rosh Koil was here. 2-day training I gave, 24 hours, in order to help them. Because otherwise it would take me at least a year to give them the information. They're in stage 4. Every day is pikuach nefesh. So I'm like, okay, let's take off. I need 3 days really. I'll take off days of our lives and let's go through the sugya from beginning to end and try to understand what's really happening for real. What's really wrong with the kid? Where is the missing because I found that piece that's missing and I found a solution to it. And it happens to be exactly what all the Torah said. That heals the spiritual problems is the same thing that heals the emotional problems. It's the same thing that heals trauma damage. That makes you feel like you're nothing. We make you feel like you're the best, you're something. And it even heals most psychiatric problems. We'll talk about that a different time. I don't want to bite off too much. I'm just telling you the results. Hundreds of parents will tell you the diagnosis, psychiatric illness, even bipolar. Forget about borderline personality disorder, Shine, that's like for sure. Bipolar, multiple psychiatrists, right? I have their testimony. After 3 years in TP, less than, it was like 2.5 years. We don't know what happened. It's gone off medication. Now, the therapy world says, there's something called trauma. And if you went through a childhood trauma, it'll look like mental illness. Good morning, America. More and more, the therapy world is makar this. But 10 years ago, they were not. And they were very convinced that they were right. And now they realize they were wrong. But they'll still fight me until they realize that I'm right about this also, only about this. I'm wrong about everything else, could be, but not this. They'll realize, wow, all they needed was feeling of acceptance in spite of the fact that they're not behaving properly. Wow. All they needed was what the Baal Shem Tov said, and the Chazon Ish, and Rav Pam, and Rav Steinman. Wow. So I hope you'll take this, please, into your heart. It's not an attack. It's not my business what you do. I'm just sharing my experience with you. Shem should help. We should all be zeicha to give good eitzes to people. We all have to pray that whatever advice we give should work. We should be zeicha to see success in our being miyayitz people and to be saved. Chalila, shlayavai, takala, from us, that we shouldn't hurt anybody. And we shouldn't ever give advice keneged, open das Torah, really from the Messiah that we all have. I wish you a lot of hatzlacha. Please don't hate me. Otherwise, I'm going to need therapy.